Welcome to Rehoboth Edu-Tech and Research Retail. This is our research training session. Here you will learn how to conduct an outstanding research project for your undergraduate, master's and PhD research. Remember, I am your host for this training session and I am Colin Sanke Obo. Sit now and enjoy the training session. This is the chapter 1 of the training session. Enjoy.
Now, if you can see my screen, there is a topic there. Can you see individual, organizational, and situational determinants of ethical decision making among accounting professionals in Nigeria? Okay, my first question to you before we move on: how many variables can you see in this topic? How many variables? Who can answer? How many variables can you see in this topic? Does anybody want to answer quickly? Just unmute yourself and answer. Or you can type in the chat. You can type in the chat. Please, who is talking? Look at this topic. Look at this title. How many variables can you see in this title? The title is Individual, Organizational, and Situational Determinants of Ethical Decision Making Among Accounting Professionals in Nigeria. Okay, so how many variables can you see? That's my first question. Okay, somebody said 2 variables. All right, and 3 variables. Okay, who else? I think 3. Okay, any other answer? We have individual, situational, and organizational and situational determinants of ethical decision making among 4 variables. Okay, now you're responding. Thank you very much. Now, from this title, from this topic, because that's where your investigation starts from. That's where your research starts from, the topic. The topic shows to your reader what's your problem, the problem you want to resolve, the problem you want to address, the problem you have identified that you want to address. And if you are not able to identify your variables from your title, then you have problem developing your background to the study and your statement of the problem. And you also have problem breaking down your problem into achievable objectives. Okay, so let's start with the title. On two directions. The first direction is that there are only 2 variables that we are interested in this research topic. There are 2 variables we can see in this research topic, and the 2 variables here are the independent variable and the dependent variable. Independent variable and the dependent variable. On the other direction, there are 4 categories of variables. There are 4 categories of variables, and we could see the individual variable, we could see the organizational variable, we could see the situational variables, and we could see the ethical decision making, which is a variable. So we have 4 variables here, 3 independent variables and 1 dependent variable. So is that clear to you? Is that clear to you? So when you have your topic before you, you should be able to first and foremost tell the 2 variables that you have. That is, dividing it into the dependent variable and the independent variable. So the independent variables here are individual, organizational, and situational variables. They are the independent variables. They stand on their own. The way the topic is framed shows that these variables are affecting or have something to influence in ethical decision making. Why ethical decision making is the dependent variable. So looking at your own topic that you have come up with or you want to research into, you should be able to break it down to what is my independent variable from this topic? What is my dependent variable from this topic? And so if you are able to do that, and then what are the number of variables do I have in all? So if you are able to do that, then you are ready to develop the background to the study. The background to the study. And that leads us to the first thing in your research project. You could see the chapter 1. You could see the chapter 1 there. And the first thing there is the background to the study. So the chapter 1 will be covering practically what we mean by the background to the study, the statement of the problem, the aim and objectives of the study, research questions, research hypotheses, significance of the study, scope and delimitation of the study, which you have it as limitation of the study. Then we have the operational definition of terms. Okay, so background to the study. Now, when you have the, yes, ma'am. Okay, I'll send a link to you now. I'll send a link to you. All right. So when you have a topic like this, and like I said, you should be able to know from your topic what the problem is that you have identified to address. So from this topic, and you look at your topic there before you, and you should be able to identify the dependent variable. The dependent variable generally is usually where the statement of the problem is formed or built around. Why the independent variables with a blend of the dependent variable is constitutes your background to the study. So you have the dependent variable. Now, with this particular topic, the dependent variable, which is the ethical decision making among accounting professionals. This is the dependent variable. And when you are building up your statement of the problem, you are to build up your statement of the problem around your dependent variable. When you are building up your background to the study, you have to build it around the independent variable, linking it up with the dependent variable. Okay, I would move from there. So background to the study, what are we saying about the background to the study? What does it mean? Now, like I said, from your title, you should be able to identify the problem. Now, when you are building up a background to the study, you are telling a story, what has led or what is surrounding the problem that you have identified that you want to investigate into. For example, when you meet two people fighting and you came to the fighting scene, then you want to resolve that fight. You need to hear from each party what led to that fight. What has led to these two people having a disagreement? And you see each party telling their story. And this thing happened like this and that. He did not tell me sorry and this and that. The problem here is the fighting. You have been able to identify the fighting, which is the problem, that two people are fighting. But now, before you even start addressing and resolving and reconciling these two people not to fight, you need to understand the background. What has led to this fight? Maybe it is money that has caused these two people to disagree and has led them to start fighting. You need to understand the background. You need to get information enough leading to this problem that you have identified that two of your classmates are fighting. And before you even address that problem, you need to understand what has led to this fight, what has made this one to be annoyed with this one, or what has made both of them to be annoyed with each other, and they start fighting. That is what background to the study is all about. You have identified your problem. From your title, remember, please don't leave that understanding that you should be able to identify your problem from your topic. Your topic should be able to point the reader straight away what the problem that you have addressed or you have planned to address in this study. So your background to the study is what gives the information. It provides adequate information showing and leading to what has led to the problem that you are out to address. Please, okay. So, you see now that if you don't understand the background to the study, your study will not really have a clear direction, because that is what your reader meets in the first place, the background. You are giving them information enough that has led to this problem that you have identified. And the way to build up your background to the study, you can address it, you can start it from two perspectives, historical or from the current situation. For example, you could give a background to the study. Now okay, let me limit myself to this topic. You see now that individual, organizational, and situational determinants of ethical decision making among accounting professionals in Nigeria. If I want to build up a background to this study, remember I said my problem here is I want to address the issue of ethical decision making, which when we get to the statement of the problem, you will see that the statement of the problem is built around a dependent variable, which is the ethical decision making. And that's where I'll be drawing issues, discussing that there is problem with ethical decision making among accounting professionals in Nigeria. I will have to build a strong argument. I have to put up a strong argument to show that there is a problem amongst accountants with the issue of making ethical decisions. Okay, so but that is for the statement of the problem. Now I want to build the background to the study. I want to give a background that talking about how organizations depend on accountants. How organizations depend on accountants to provide ethical information that could be relied upon to make decisions. How the organizations and users of accounting information look up to the accountants to guide them in their decision making when it comes to the issue of financial issues and also non-financial issues relating to issues that management accounting issues. So you have to build up a background to tell your reader where you are going to is the problem, that there is problem with ethical decision making among accountants. But you have to first of all tell us about accountants in Nigeria. What do they do? How are they this important that we need to study about the way they make decisions, their ethical decisions? What are their role to society? You need to talk about what are the individual factors associated that are associated with the way accountants come up with decisions. You know, you are not the decisions first. You are not talking about the ethical decision because you are building a background. What are the organizational factors that make accountant, that influence accountant decision making? What are the situational factors? So you'll be giving a background, building it around how that accountants are important, very, very important, and why it is important to look and pay attention to their ethical decision making. Remember, the problem here is the dependent variable. we are identifying that there is problem with the way accountants come up with decision making. There is problem with ethics in decision making among accountants. But building your background, you are giving information what has led to this problem, how the accountants are so important, and we need to pay attention to their ethical decision making. How that if they don't make ethical decision, an organization may collapse. It may cause problems to users. And so this is what the background to the study majorly is about. And you really need to give detailed information about what is leading you, or what has inspired you, what has influenced you, or what is has become the issues that you want to resolve relating to your problem. So you give us a background leading to that problem. So background to the study is not where you discuss the problem. It's not where you analyze the problem. It is where you actually provide information leading your reader to what has led to the problem. So it provides a context surrounding the problem. It is when you now get to statement of the problem that you come up clearly what the problem is. But the background, you are giving a background into the whole research. And you know that your research is built, the whole research is built around you trying to solve a problem that you have identified. If you don't have a problem that you have identified, then you don't really have a research, because every research addresses a problem. And a problem here may not be one problem you call problem. It may be that you want to clarify a wrong opinion that over the years, for example, evolution theory says man came out from monkey, that man started from being a monkey. And so you may want to address that problem, that no, man did not start from being a monkey. You see now that you have identified the problem. So the problem is to clarify the long-held view that man started from being a monkey and metamorphosed into becoming a man. So the problem here is that literature has not covered a particular aspect. Though it is not a new topic, but you don't have much literature that is providing information enough to influence decision making towards that area. So, or it could be methodological problem. You are trying to bring in a new methodology that will help address a particular research, a particular problem. So I will discuss all of that when we get to the practicality of building up the statement of the problem. So the background to the study gives the context to the study. It provides important information surrounding your research. The background to the study generates the reader's interest into the problem that you want to investigate and address. Do you get that? And I said you could start it in a form of an historical event and then discuss it down to the current state of what is happening. Or you could go straight away, starting it with the current state of what is happening and make reference to historical events that has made what is currently happening to be happening. And so you will see now I'll display an example of a particular background to the study. So can you see the screen, the chapter 1, the background to the study? You could see that this background to the study it is starting with historical events. at the Group of 20 Leaders Summit held in Hangzhou, China in 2016, lead discussions were centered on corruption, financial integrity, and economic governance. So you see that this study is painting a background. But remember, the title is ethical decision making, and that is where the problem also centers on. But you are trying to build a background why we need to investigate this problem, how that accountants are very important, how that events have happened that have now led to this problem that we must just have to investigate. So you could see how this background to the study is presented, the beginning of it, at the group. So you could start it historically. You could start it when something happened and build on it till you arrive at the point where now there is need to look into this aspect of the accountant's life, their ethical decision making. You have not actually analyzed the problem. You have only brought out a background that will help your reader to understand the context and what has led to the problem. So look at this example at the Group of 20 Leaders Summit held in Hangzhou, China in 2016. Lead discussions, there were discussions in that meeting, but lead discussions were centered on corruption. And you can't talk about corruption without relating back to the accountant. Financial integrity, you can't talk about financial integrity without relating back to the accountant and the decisions accountant make. And economic governance. Now, at this meeting, you can see how it is being built up. At the meeting, there was a tender on the need for ardent commitment to improving financial integrity and transparency, and in turn, restoring trust in businesses, institutions, and governments. So you are giving the background that trust is being, people don't have trust again in businesses. People don't have trust again in institutions and even in government. And you could see another thing with the background is that you are not talking from your head. Because remember that you are trying to give a context. You are building a context, what has led to the problem. So you are telling a story. You are telling a story and you need to cite appropriate sources. You need to cite empirical sources, other people that have also come up with this position that you are using to build your background. You need to cite a report of international organization. For example, IFAC is an international organization. World Bank is an international organization, UN and all of that. They also have reports they present regarding issues that you may want to investigate into. And so you have to cite appropriate sources because you are not speaking from your head. You are only using information you have gathered from other people to build a beautiful story, to tell your reader, to guide your reader, to provide context to your reader, what has led to the problem that you want to investigate. So you could see how this paragraph is being built. It says, at the meeting, there was a tender on the need for ardent commitments to improving financial integrity and transparency. And you know definitely when you are talking about improving financial integrity and transparency, you cannot remove the accountant from it. And that's why we need to go and investigate the way accountants come up with ethical decision making. So you cannot actually remove the accountant from the issue of improving financial integrity and transparency. And when financial integrity and transparency are improved, in turn, there will be restoration of trust in businesses, institutions, and government. So this is how you build your background to the study. You tell a story. You make it strong and captivating. You use the work of other people to support your story. So at this place, you are telling a story. And like I said, you could start it as an historical event or even current happenings. And you are moving from historical to current and building up a story. But remember that this is not where you discuss your problem. You only provide information leading your reader to what's your problem. Now, why am I taking time to do this and all of that? Remember, I said it's not just only for your final year project. If you have this understanding, if you have this knowledge, even when you are working as an accountant in KPMG, PwC, you will have, this is a knowledge that helps you to build. It's a skill, a high problem solving skill. Once you have this knowledge, because for every problem, you have to give a proper background. And when you appear at a board meeting and all of that, and they want to address a problem, and you are giving a background, what other people have actually said about this and that, what has led to the problem, you will see that they will sit down and want to listen to what you have to say. Okay, so you could see now, in accordance with the IFAC, the G20 leaders called on the accountancy profession for a proactive action in promoting financial integrity, accountability, and governance, which are requisites for sustainable long-term economic growth. You see now that we are building a background. Anybody that reads your background should be interested in wanting to read more your work, what actually you have to present. And you see now the expediency of this salient call to the profession aligns with its role in achieving financial integrity and transparency in the global economy. So you could see that some works have been cited. That's why your supervisor will tell you, go and get journals, get at least 10 journals, because you use other people's work, you read and get their opinion towards something, and you beautifully use their work to build your own story leading to your background. And another thing you have to watch out for, your grammatical presentation. How you construct your grammar, how you build up from one sentence leading to another sentence, it will bring out a beautiful story about your background to the study. It's not just putting words together. You have to be able to harmonize each sentence like a build-up. Remember, you are telling a story, what has led to the problem that you want to investigate. And you could see that each sentence is a build-up on the previous sentence, leading to a particular point, emphasizing a particular point, which later will form your paragraph. And each paragraph should contain a significant point linking each other together, so that when your reader reads, there is connection. So when your supervisor tries to read and make two paragraphs together and there is no correlation, there is no build-up, you have put your supervisor already off, and the supervisor may conclude that this student does not know what he or she is doing. And so take note of that. Very, very important. And so this is how we build the background to the study. I don't want to go over it all because of time, but do you understand what the background to the study is if you were asked to summarize what you have learned, and also to make a note of what you have learned, that what in the project, what does background to the study mean, and how do we build background to the study? What does it emphasize, and what information should the reader see in your background to the study? So this is what background to the study is about. So I emphasize it again, that it provides a context to your study. It provides important information surrounding the problem that you want to investigate. You are not discussing the problem yet. There's a section for that, but you are giving a background, a context, what has led to this problem that you are set to investigate. And to help you, I said from your topic, you should be able to identify your problem. You should be able to identify what your dependent variable is, which actually majorly will constitute what the problem is. And then you build up your background to the study. So I move to the statement of the problem. So having built a good background to the study, we move to the statement of the problem. But before I move to the statement of the problem, I will scroll down to how this background to the study was ended, or so that you see how it leads now us to the statement of the problem. So I'll read this last paragraph so that you see how. Now, in Nigeria, this is the last paragraph. In Nigeria, the financial scandal in the private and public sectors have made the nation's economic diversification and strong growth projections not to translate into any significant decline in poverty levels. About 62% Nigerians still live in indigence. And look at the source. You are not saying something from your head. You must provide a source. Now, this information, this percentage would have changed. Now we are in 2023, but as at 2017, the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, came up with this information. And so you are giving a background why we need to investigate ethical decision making among accountants. Remember, earlier on, you have shown that they are very important if we must ensure financial integrity. Okay, besides, this is another international organization. Transparency International ranked Nigeria as the 40th most corrupt nations among 176 countries surveyed, and 21st among 46 sub-Saharan African countries. Now, overtly, that is, Nigeria's position compared to other African countries such as South Africa, and this is the ranking of South Africa, Ghana and Senegal, and the source is being provided there. And the alleged act of indignity by accounting professionals underscore, look at that, this is where the issue now lies, underscore, you could see it, the need for a concerted research effort to provide empirical evidence and explanation that would guide the process of instilling true accountability and financial integrity in corporate Nigeria. So you could see how this background has been streamlined to now show us, to now lead us to the problem. So based on this background, Nigeria is going through a lot of financial scandals, both private and all of that. So all these happenings is now underscoring the need for a research to be conducted to provide empirical evidence and explanation that would guide the process of instilling true accountability and financial integrity. This is how you should end your background to the study. You should be able to end it like that so that anybody that reads it has a good grip of what you want to do. You have provided sufficient information leading to the problem that you want to investigate. Now, the second aspect of the research problem, which is the statement of the problem, it has 4 sections generally. Generally, it has 4 sections. And the 4 sections are very simple. There is no need to beat about the bush when you come to your statement of the problem. Remember that you have already given a background leading to the problem. So when you come to your statement of the problem, you have to now be straightforward about it. And usually your statement of the problem is not a lengthy thing compared to the background to the study. The background to the study is more lengthy than the statement of the problem. And I will advise you, keep your background to the study at most or at least within 2 to 3, 4 pages. Don't extend it beyond that. And depending on the line spacing that you are using also, don't say oríṣiríṣi in your background to the study. Page is enough to communicate your problem, and highest 1.5 page. You don't need to write 3 pages of statement of the problem. No, you are not doing a PhD work. And besides, even a PhD work, you don't extend to this thing, because at this point you need to hit the problem right away. And so the first sections that your reader will be looking out for, or your supervisor or your examiner will be looking out for in your project statement of the problem, is first of all, identify the problem clearly. Don't go and hide the problem in between paragraphs. What should come up in your statement of the problem? Your first paragraph, your first sentences, that your first few sentences should tell your reader what the problem is. There is a problem with the way accountants make decisions. Research have shown that accountants make unethical decisions or findings. So straight away identify the problem, and make sure when you're identifying the problem, you are referencing authentic sources. It could be prior study, that's other empirical study. It could be an international organization. It could be anecdotal report or newspaper report. But the principle here is identify the problem. Don't lump it up with too many writings. Straight away, the problem that this study seeks to investigate and address is problem amongst student academic performance. Straight away, identify the problem. So that's the first thing your statement of the problem must contain. So clearly state or identify the problem using empirical evidence to claim and justify that it is a problem. That is the first thing to do. The second thing now is justify that it is a problem. How do you justify that it is a problem? That's where you'll be using more reports, what they have studies have said in the past about that problem, what international organizations have said about that problem. Not all study will go through that route. The problem that you may be identifying in your work is that there is contradiction in the literature, and your study wants to come and address that contradiction. That the researchers are not agreeing that this particular thing is a problem. So it could be a problem that you have identified, and that's what we call gap, the gap that you have identified in literature. Okay, so first I said identify the problem clearly, state it clearly, so that anybody that is reading your first sentence or first 2 sentences have shown your reader the problem. Secondly, I said justify the problem, and this is how you justify it. You empirically and theoretically justify that this thing is a problem requiring investigation. You could cite past evidence, reports of international organizations, or even from newspapers and anecdotal reports. That is, interrogate the problem. Interrogate the problem. So identify the problem that you want to investigate. Secondly, justify that it is a problem. So that is just what I have said. Then the third aspect is to still justify the problem, that it is a problem, but this time around showing that if this problem is not addressed, it will lead to other problems, or rather, because this problem is not being addressed, it is leading to other problems. So you get it? Your statement of the problem clearly states and identifies the problem that you want to investigate. You must clearly state it. Let your first paragraph state that, and remember to cite authorities, why you think that thing is a problem. Number 2, justify that it is a problem, and you justify from the angle of empirical and theoretical perspective. It could be that a theory is justifying that this thing is a problem. It could be that other people's work, what other people have said, is justifying that this thing is a problem. And I said empirically and theoretically justify that it is a problem, what you have identified, needing investigation, needing research attention. And you could cite past evidence, reports of international organizations, or even from newspaper reports and anecdotal reports. Now, then the third aspect, you have to still justify, but this time around from the angle that because this problem have not been resolved, it has led to further problems. And if it is not resolved, if it is not addressed empirically, it will further lead to more problems. So you are trying to justify why what you are doing is important. That is what I'm saying. Your statement of the problem should be able to convince your reader that what you are doing is not a mere waste of time. You are actually addressing a problem that needs to be addressed. If not, it will lead to other problems, or it has led to other problems and it needs research attention. Then the final aspect of your statement of the problem is to show what your study wants to now do to address that problem. So you now say that's why some authors, some researchers will say, based on the aforementioned problem, or based on the problems identified above, this study, now your study, seeks to investigate how that individual characteristics affect the way accountants make decisions. So that is how to close your statement of the problem. So when we read your statement of the problem, we are looking out for this information. What is the problem that you have identified? Is it clear enough? Secondly, have you been able to justify that it is a problem? And thirdly, have you been able to show that we really need to pay attention to address this issue? That if it is left unaddressed, it will cause problem, or rather, because it has been left unaddressed, it has led to problems. So we need to address it. Then finally, you need to show how that your own study has come to resolve this problem. I don't know if this is clear enough so that anytime you can build your research statement of the problem strongly, that is, anybody that reads it, it is very, very strong and convincing. So look at this example, because I promised that it will be something practical. There has been heightened ethical expectation for the accounting professional as aftermath of the global financial crisis resulted in several corporate collapses. You could see the citation there. Although reports of unethical professional practices transverse borders, that is, it goes beyond borders, the Nigerian episode is peculiar and calls for exigent action. And you could see citation there. People that have also expressed the same view, people that are of the same opinion and at different years, they have expressed the same opinion. Bakri 2007, Otusonya 2010, Oguleye 2015. Now, still on identifying the problem, a body of documented evidence has shown that in every public institution and private establishment, there appears, now that word appears is deliberate, because in research, you don't come direct when you are building your problem. You are appealing to your reader to agree with you. you are not taking an authoritative position yet. It is when you are discussing, you take authoritative position based on your findings. But this, you are appealing. So there appears to be, we know that there is, but research has its language. There appears to be an already established culture of unethical practices, which for years has sabotaged the potentiality of the nation's economic development. So you could see that if you read this paragraph, you know what the problem is. It is clear what the problem is. And in this, in identifying this problem, it is not coming just from the head. You have used other people's own expression of this problem to build and to present the problem that you have identified in your study. So you could see how that the first thing to do is to identify the problem. When your reader reads the first paragraph, they should be able to clearly identify what the problem is. It's not that till they read till the end before they know what this student is talking about. Clearly identify your problem. This is not where to give background again. You have already given background to the study. This is where to identify the problem and discuss the problem, justify the problem. So you could see how we have been able to identify this problem and we are now justifying it. So you could see a kind of justification here. Look at, I will highlight it. Now, in 2016, look at what is justifying that this thing is a problem. In fact, you could see how it is connected. In fact, the president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, at the launch of the National Reorientation Campaign in September 2016, stated that, now, there is no doubt that our value system has been badly eroded over the years. The long cherished and time-honored, time-tested virtues of honesty, integrity, hard work, punctuality, good neighborliness, abhorrence of corruption and patriotism have given way in the main to dishonesty, indolence, unbridled corruption, and widespread impunity. So you see now that this study is justifying that what we want to investigate among accountants is really a problem. And it is worth investigating. So this is how you build your statement of the problem. I said your statement of the problem should have 4 things. Identify the problem clearly, justify that it is a problem, justify that it is a problem indeed. Then show that the problem, if not addressed, will lead to other problems, or being left unaddressed has led to other problems. And then finally show what your study wants to do. So all these are either justifying that it is a problem, justifying that it is a problem. So now look at the final, showing what the study wants to do. I've highlighted it. With the magnitude of reports of unethical business practices and the alleged involvement of accounting professionals in fraud in public and private organizations, there is a need for an empirical examination of the ethical decision-making process of accounting professionals in Nigeria. There is a need for an empirical examination of the ethical decision-making process of accounting professionals in Nigeria. Do you see where this study is coming from now? This is imperative because if the accounting profession must stand to its responsibility in promoting true accountability, governance, and financial integrity, which are fundamental to nation building, economic growth, and sustainable development, its own credibility must be restored and sustained. That ends the statement of the problem. That ends the statement of the problem. So you see now that we have been able to conclude the statement of the problem. We have identified the problem. We have justified that it is a problem. We have shown that that problem has led to poor economic growth, increase in poverty, all of that and everything. If it is not addressed, Nigeria will plunge more and more. And truly, the thing was not addressed. That's why Buhari that mentioned it 2016. We are in 2023. Nigeria has plunged more deeper into serious problem, because that problem of accountant compromising, and you know how the accountant general stole money, billions of naira from lecturers, from all of that through these IPs, because of this issue of unethical decision making. So this is how you come about statement of the problem. And I want to believe that that is very, very clear to you, so that we'll move. If that, because these are the two main things, first and foremost, that start your work: the background and then what the problem is. Every other thing builds on the problem. Your aim anchors on the problem. Your objectives are actually a breakdown of the problem to a little achievable objectives. Your research question is in fashion with the objective and all of that, which you will see. But this statement of the problem, that is where the issue actually lies for many students. How do I give a background? How do I build a story? And how do I present a very strong statement of the problem? So I believe that this is very clear, so that I can move on and see how far we can cover. So now, having established these two aspects, the rest I will be very, very fast, because they are very direct. Aim and objective. Many times students make mistake to repeat their title as the aim. This is not correct. This is not correct. The aim and objective of your study, and I'm using UNILAG format and generally, because Ife, Ibadan, they have their own style. They call it the broad objective. Ibadan has it as purpose of the study. They just use purpose of the study. But UNILAG, you use aim and objective, and I will explain the difference between the two. And your aim is not for you to rewrite your topic. You investigating this topic. Why are you that? Why? So if your study is to check the impact of the use of computer on student academic performance, so why are you doing that? That is the aim. Why am I researching on this topic? That is the aim. Do you understand? Don't say the aim of this study and you just rewrite your objective. That is not the aim, please. The aim is that your topic. I am investigating this topic because of this. That is the aim. And look at the study we are using as example. Can you see the aim there? How the aim is framed? The aim of this study is to examine the influence of three groups of variables, namely individual ethical ideological leaning, organizational ethical climate, and the perception of moral intensity of the situation on the ethical decision making of accounting professionals in Nigeria. I have restated the title, but that is not where I'm going. Don't stop there. You will see now where the aim. Why am I doing that? And this is the aim. That would guide appropriate actions geared towards improving their ethical decision making. So you are investigating that topic so that you will provide empirical information that will lead to decision making in improving something or doing something or drawing attention to something or clarifying something. So don't just state your topic and say that is your aim. No. You can state your topic, but continue that why I'm doing this topic is so that this study will provide information to guide decision making regarding this area or something. Then you have a complete aim. But if you just state the aim of this study is to investigate the impact and you just write your topic, you have not written any aim. You have only given the broad objective. And Unilag, we don't follow that format, broad objective. So take note of that. So once you have identified the aim of your study, the next thing, you now state the objectives. The objective must come out from your statement of the problem. Don't go and speak objective from your head. You have discussed your problem. Now, when you want to come up with objective, because it is in achieving your objective that you are addressing the problem. So you see students who just bring objective that has no relationship with the problem statement that they have presented. So if you achieve those objectives, how have you been able to resolve the problem you have identified? So it is in achieving this objective that you are solving the problem that you are identifying. So that's why your objective must flow from your statement of the problem. From your statement of the problem. Please take note of that. Because by the time you just present objective that has no relationship with even the problem that you have stated, you will see your defense panel will cancel your work and all of that. So please take note of that. I repeat again that your objective, the objective of the study is actually a breakdown of the problem that you have already stated. This time around, how do you address this problem? You break the problem down to achievable objectives, so that when you would have achieved this objective, then you would have provided solution to the problem. And remember, like I said, when you go for a job interview and they say, why should we employ you? Why should we pick you and leave other candidates? Don't say I graduated with first class and this and that. Just tell them you have a high problem solving skill. And every organization has a problem. And with your skill, you'll be able to identify the problem of this company that I am coming into and provide solution by breaking down the problem into achievable objectives that the organization can pursue in resolving their problem. I tell you the truth, you will see that they will be drawn, they will be endeared towards you. They will know that this is somebody that we can employ. Everybody graduated with first class, everybody has 2-1, everybody, whatever it is. But they are looking for people that will be able to identify problems and break them down to achievable objectives that the organization can pursue and use scientific method, not just mere head, I think we should do this. So this makes you stand out if you can discuss it. And also, if you publish your undergraduate project, which is one of the reasons for this training, to do a good project and publish it. And once you publish it, it will be online. Anybody can access it. That is a major contribution you have made to development of the world. You have made to make the world a better place. And any interview, whether you are applying for scholarship and you reference your contribution to knowledge, to theory, to practice, to the global development, that sets you apart. Let me quickly move on. So these objectives are actually a breakdown of what you have discussed in your problem. And this is how your objectives should be stated. Now, the specific objective, actually, you don't need that word specific. You don't really need that word specific because the theme of this is aim and objectives. So you have discussed the aim and then certainly you move straight to the objective. Why a specific objective comes in is when you have the broad objective, and that's UI and IFE format. They have the broad objective, then the specific objective. But we in Unilag, we don't have the broad objective and specific objective. We have the aim. That is when this topic, this work I'm doing, this is what that will help me to achieve that. And what you quickly note about stating your objective, remember that for your undergraduate project, minimum of 3 objectives are okay. And with minimum 3 good objectives, you can score your A and also do a very good project. You don't need to fill the whole place with objectives. Just identify 3 key objectives that will help you, in your work, and it's sufficient. A maximum of 5. But I would suggest that keep your objective at 4. It will help you a lot to control the study. Don't open, as undergraduate student, don't open too many objectives. You want to do this, do that, do this, that. And besides, remember that your objective should come from your statement of the problem. Okay, so take that, remember that. Keep your objective simple. And for your objective, there are 2 kinds of objectives. The one that will lead to the test of hypothesis, and the objective that will not lead to the test of hypothesis. Please take note of that. Objective that will lead to the test of hypothesis, and objective that will not lead to the test of hypothesis. But all the objectives, whether it will lead to the test of hypothesis or it will not lead to the test of hypothesis, we all have research questions. They will all have research questions. Okay, so your objective is to examine, to assess, to investigate, to evaluate. These are action words. Don't just put something that is not action and active and probing enough. You should use this action word because this study is set out to evaluate, is set out to investigate, is set out to assess. And use such word, you would have come up with beautiful objectives. And so the research question, which we will not spend time on, is only a restating of your objective in a question form. And please be consistent. For example, if objective 1 is to investigate the effect of variable A on variable B, please, your research question should be consistent with effect. Don't switch to relationship. You see students who say research objective 1 is to investigate the effect of variable A on B. And when they come to research question, they will ask, what is the relationship between variable A and variable B? You have deviated. And when you come before your defense panel, they will pick it up. So if your objective is to investigate effect, your research question must be focused on effect. If your objective is to investigate relationship, your research question cannot now switch to effect or impact. You must maintain relationship. Please take note of that. Consistency. And it will flow into your hypothesis. If what your research question is, what is the effect of variable A on variable B? Your hypothesis must test effect. And you put it in a null form, there is no significant effect. Do you understand now? There is no significant effect. Limit it at effect. If your research question is, what is the relationship between variable A and B? Your hypothesis should be, there is no significant relationship. Don't switch to effect. Consistency matters a lot. And your objective, your research question is a repetition of your objective in a question form. And like I said, all your objectives should have research questions. But not all of your objectives will lead to the formulation of hypothesis. Your objective, one of your objectives will be that you want to investigate the factors affecting student academic performance. And the research question will be, what are the factors affecting student academic performance? You don't need an hypothesis for that question. For that objective, you don't need an hypothesis. Please take note of that. Very important when you are stating your objective, your research question. So research question is a restating of your objective in a question form. Your hypothesis is a restating of your research objective or research question in an affirmative form, and usually in a null form. You are taking a position. If my research question is, what is the effect of variable A on variable B? Now my hypothesis, the hypothesis to that particular question will be, there is no significant effect. So I'm affirming, but I'm taking the null form. Let my result prove otherwise. That is the research question. So hypothesis. So research hypothesis, it can be stated in two forms, but usually it is the null form. But your supervisor may want you to present it both in the null and in the alternative form. But generally, you don't need to state it in the alternative form. The null form is actually the hypothesis. The alternative, it simply means that if this null form or hypothesis does not match what we are testing, then we will now fall on the alternate hypothesis. But to be on the safer side, put both hypotheses. And this is what we mean by this one as stated in a null form. Moral idealism has no significant influence on the ethical decision making of accounting professionals. All these are stated in a null form. Null hypothesis is actually the research hypothesis. Alternate hypothesis is like the word alternative to the research hypothesis. So when your data does not support your hypothesis, then you take alternative. So please take note of that. So I've covered the aim, objective, and all of that. Let me move to significance of the study quickly. So significance of the study, students usually have problem with this. They just put lecturer will benefit from this study, student will benefit, this and that. You have not said anything. Remember that you have objectives you have stated. So what significance of the study simply means is, how significant are your objectives when they are achieved? So you would say that, oh, students will benefit from this study based on you state out that objective, that, for example, objective 1 that tests this. The outcome of this objective will benefit students in this way. You must identify the way students will benefit. You must identify the way the readers will benefit. It's not just for you to conclude and say a student will benefit, that will benefit. How? So students just write generally, okay, significance of the study. No, you will not have said anything. Remember, your study starts from your problem. You have broken down to achievable objective. So now when this objective are achieved, how is this study significant? And it is like identifying the users of accounting information and their information need, how they will benefit. So where you identify, you don't need to put everybody in the whole world. Objective 1, which seek to investigate this, the outcome of this objective will benefit government, will benefit this group in this way. With the information that with the evidence that this objective will provide, it will guide students in improving their academic performance and or to know how to read well, which will lead to their academic performance being improved. So this is what significance of the study is about. You are trying to present how important this study is, coming from the angle of you achieving your objective. It's not just you just saying anything. If you say it will help policy development, how? which of the objectives will help policy development. Or you can group it based on the topic, that findings on how this affects this will help in policy development, and you need to show how it will help in policy development. These are the things that make your work rich, very, very strong, and easily you pick your A from the defense panel, and you can publish the work, and you can present it at any interview discussing what you have done, and they will know that this person is exceptional. So that is a significance of the study. You don't need to make it lengthy. You don't need to identify all the users in the world. Just pick 3 main users, or based on your objective, 4 objectives, you can just signify 4 ways that your study is significant. Okay, I move to the scope and limitation of the study. Scope and limitation have been argued that they are both the same. Yes, in some regard, they are both the same, but in some regard, they are not the same. The scope is why you in research, you can study many things. You are only scoping your work. And there are 3 scopes, generally, 3 scopes. There may be more, but just to bring to your awareness how to scope your study. 1, geographical scope. Now, you want to investigate something among students. There are a whole lot of students in Nigeria. Okay, let's even use Unilag. There are a whole lot of students in Unilag. But you are scoping your work, limiting it to accounting students in Unilag. That's geographical. You are not going everywhere to look for where there is students. You have limited it that this study is limited to students in Unilag accounting department. You see now that geographically you have limited the work. So nobody should be expecting you to discuss anything that how about students in economics, how about accounting students in LASU. No, you have already scoped your work. That what I am doing is limited to just students in Unilag. And to move further again, you can say final year students. So you have scoped this study. The scope of this study is limited to final year accounting students in Unilag. You must be very clear about it. And look at the scope of this study. The scope of this study is limited to accounting professionals certified by the Institute of Chartered Accountants and the Associations of National Accountants of Nigeria. It did not stop there. Who are in private practices and in paid employment, working as auditors, financial accountants, tax consultants, academics, management accountants, and forensic accountants. You see how the scope is limiting it. Now, members of ICANN and ANA who are not in private practice nor in paid employment, as well as accounting professionals of other accounting bodies like ACCA and all of that, were excluded from the survey. So do you see now that this is a geographical scope? Learn to scope your work. If you are doing Yaba local government, where in Yaba local government? Limit it. Let us know that geographically you are not covering everywhere in Yaba. This is the aspect, this is the local government council area or development area you are conducting your study. There are many banks in Nigeria. This is the particular bank that I'm using, and this bank has branches. This is the branch I am using, Unilag branch. You have scoped your work. So nobody will be expecting or asking questions, why didn't you collect data here? Why didn't you do this? You have already scoped your work. That's geographical scope. Also, we have empirical and theoretical scope. Empirical and theoretical scope. Why there are different variables you could investigate, you can scope that. The scope of this study is limited to why there are this variable, that variable is limited to just only 3 variables, this, and this. So that nobody will ask you, why didn't you investigate how eating of food affects student academic performance? You have not scoped your work to include eating of food. You have scoped your work theoretically, empirically, that the scope of this study is limited to the use of computer, sleeping habits, and also use of leisure time, how they affect student academic performance. So nobody will be asking you, why didn't you include this? Why didn't you include that? You, as a researcher, you are at the liberty to scope your work the way you want to scope it. And you must justify why you have scoped it like that. You must justify. Why am I limiting it to just UNILAG students? You give your reason. It could be to be able to manage the research. It could be for depth, to study it in depth instead of just spreading your this thing. It could be financial resources, and that is where your limitations of the study comes in. Why have you scoped this study like this? What are the factors that have limited you to scope this study? So don't just say generally finance, I don't have money, and this and that. No, discuss, even when you are saying you don't have money, discuss it how it relates to your scope. That this study has been scoped to be limited to a final year accounting student due to the following limitations. First, availability of data, or inability to cover all the students in Nigeria. Secondly, financial issue, time constraint, but you must relate them back to the scope. You must tie it that you have scope your work like this because of this limitation. That's why the two go hand in hand, scope and limitation. If not, you would have just say scope, then come down and say limitation. But going together, scope and limitation, is that you are showing us that you have scoped this study to be limited, to this particular area. And what now has influenced you to scope the study like this are the following limitation. Finance, and you will discuss how finance limits it. Time constraint of data and all of that. You will discuss these things together. So that is the scope and limitation. And then that brings us to the last, which is the operational definition of terms. It is not for you to be defining everything. You see students just go and carry dictionary definition or this thing and the textbook definition. No. There are terms that you have used, especially as it revolves around your variables, as it revolves around your problem. And you need to define it the way you have used it in your study. If you say accounting professional, anybody can define accounting professional in different ways. But the way you have limited it to your study, so that anywhere we see accounting professionals in your study, we know exactly what you are saying. We will not assume it to cover other things. For example, you can say in this study, accounting is defined as debit and credit. So anywhere we see accounting in your work, we know that you have already defined it to mean debit and credit as it fits your study. So it's not for you to go and bring a dictionary meaning and say accounting can be defined as the classification, collection, recording, all of that. No, you are making a mistake. Where you are to define terms as you have used them in your work. And if it is different from the conventional meaning, then you will define it there. And if you are adopting that the accounting professional in this study follow the definition given by Otusoya 2020, which says accounting professionals are human beings. So you see now, anywhere we see accounting professional in your study, we take them as human beings. We can literally substitute human being wherever we see accounting professional. That is what definition of terms is. And that's why you see a brief there. The following terms are defined as they have been used in the study. So this brings us to the end of the chapter 1.